Welcome, Aquarius, to a Gemini New Moon. 1 month forecast for the ascendant, the Sun, or the Moon. Across the 14th or 15th of June, depending on location, the new moon in Gemini is at 24 degrees and 2 minutes. We could talk about Gemini new moons generally, but each lunation is completely unique. On the screen is this one, but from a purely Aquarius viewpoint. I'm going to unpack this for you to give you a clear picture of what you can expect over the next 4 weeks in terms of your energy, work, relationships, or finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. So the event occurs in the third decan of the sign of Gemini, which is intriguing because that's subbroad in elemental decans by your two co-regents. So Saturn, your traditional ruler, and Uranus, your progressive ruler. And that means that Saturn brings perhaps a little bit of stability, Uranus the potential to do things in a fresh way. But for the first time in 77 years, Uranus, the planet of freedom, and that modern ruler of yours, is in the sign of Gemini when the new moon occurs. And that brings a real sense of expectation and even excitement into the mix. But let's just talk about the archetypes of Gemini. So Gemini is the third zodiac sign. It's mutable and it's about connection. And it's an air sign like yours, so very much to do with that communication. But Gemini energy is very quick, very agile. Its ruler in mythology, Mercury, is the winged messenger, the intermediary between the gods above and us mere mortals on planet Earth. But for you, Gemini energy represents house 5, which really is an opportunity to set your intentions on this event as far as pleasure, joy, social interaction, and maybe also showcasing your unique talents to the maximum effect. So let's just draw down deeper into things for you. The energy of Uranus is intriguing and it is forging some lovely influences, but it's also forging one very challenging one. Because over the last year and a half, the north and south nodes have been across the signs of Pisces and Virgo, respectively. And for you, it's been very much to do with getting in touch with your values, what really is important to you about your life foundations. But as far as the North Node, trust in the process, that instinctively things will be healed, they can improve after the battering of Saturn going through the second house for the previous 2.5 years, or it was some of that period too. Now, the fifth house can also be about speculation. So if you are thinking that you want to be or use the mental faculties of Gemini and its ability to think very quickly, but with the more innovative energies of Uranus in the house, that could give you the desire to do some things that show a lot of flair and really also seize the moment if you get an instinct to go for it. But just know Uranus does T-square the nodes. So what you've been trying to free yourself from, the South Node, perhaps a more perfectionist approach to what you share or even intimacy, coming more into what your true values are with the North Node, that is, or they are being challenged by Uranus, which wants to be more playful, it wants to be more frivolous, wants to live in the moment. But also, if we think about Pisces as being emotion, uh, Virgo as being much to do with our physical well-being, and Uranus to do with our mental welfare, we could, with the energy of this particular event, almost find ourselves buzzing with so much vibrancy, we become very ungrounded. And that's where the mental mastery comes in. It's important to know that this energy between the nodes and Uranus now lasts through to the 26th of July, but the energy between Uranus and the two eclipses coming across those two signs, 28th of August with Pisces, 20th of February next year with Virgo, they're going to be interacting with the node as well. So for the next year, I think it's going to be important when you're thinking about not necessarily gambling. If you enjoy a flutter, so be it. But if you're thinking about doing something that is much more speculative, just think about foundations and what Saturn really taught you through that journey through the sign of Pisces. So that's Uranus in a more challenging way, but in a more enlightening way, it's forging a stunning link with Venus. Venus is right on your seventh house cusp. It's moved into the proud Leo, where it can certainly be a bit of a show off, but it can bring some magic to your relationships over the next just under 4 weeks. Also, Venus is forging its own quite beautiful link to Neptune. So words could be captivating. You could encounter someone who's larger than life, their own charisma turned up to max that you find very difficult to resist. However, the ruler of the sign of Gemini, Mercury, is in a very testing right angle to your traditional ruler of Saturn. And that third, sixth house energy can create a lot of rigidity. And because Mercury's in the sixth house, it may be that you're potentially going to suffer with some headaches. I have one as I'm recording this. I think it's very important to be truthful. So that is something to be aware of. However, Mars, the planet of action, is linking brilliantly to Jupiter in a sextile, which peaks on the 28th, which can boost your vitality, especially if you're doing something that meets your soul energy. But they're both in a semi-sextile to the lunation, which is encouraging. So we can think about Gemini as being flirty, a little bit changeable. Uranus makes it perhaps more unpredictable, but it's certainly a very rich opportunity for you to just feel that you have the right to have fun, pleasure, joy. If you have kids, their pursuits and achievements can also shine brightly over the next 4 weeks. But if you are wanting to bring more energy into your social situation, or you're wanting to use more creativity around your work, this is your chance to go for it. But I think we can see that it's important not to be too rash and also be aware that our nervous systems, dealing with all the changes that are going on around technology, automation, artificial intelligence, and the fact that Gemini very much is to do with those messages, and we're all being absolutely drowned in the amount of messages and images we're seeing, at times we need to just be protective. But I think if you can work with that, there is definitely a really big chance for you to work with this new moon in a constructive way. I'm going to summarize those 4 areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next, Aquarius. But just to say, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. For many years, it was buy two, get 30% off. Because of the cost of living increases, I've reduced the price. You can now get 3 for the price of 1. The one you pay for is the Life Roadmap Report, the most important document any of us can ever read, because it helps us to understand much more intimately the patterns that are played out in our lives. Because the more I get into astrology, the more I see myself in more and more deeper ways, different parts of my life. And because astrology is complex to understand, and therefore we can always keep learning, and that life roadmap helps us with that. And then the 12 months forecast is totally unique to each person it's produced for, and helps us to know when to make the moves, the timing. And then the draconic soul karmic analysis, that's brilliant if you're interested in past lives, reincarnation. If you don't have your North node natally, late in Pisces or early in Aries, the draconic chart can look very different. It helps to look at astrology, life, and ourselves in a very different way. Please see below for more. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it'd be an absolute pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. And if you've yet to take advantage of my free daily written horoscope, fire to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, please see that below. If you've yet to watch your Jupiter, no more blocks, deep dive video. That's on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Chiron 50-year return video on the screen. So to summarize, as far as energy is concerned, I think the one that stands out for me most is nervous energy, and that is the square between Mercury and Saturn. The third house, very Gemini-like, can be to do with our nervous system and our circulatory energies. The sixth house can be to do with the body, but if we're thinking a lot or worrying a lot, then that actually can be something that could be very draining. But the fifth house is definitely about self-expression. And if you have got ideas, particularly professionally, that you want to showcase, this is your chance to do so. And you may find that people are more receptive. However, when it comes to your finances, I wouldn't risk the money you've got in any significant way by doing anything for the next year that is too quick for you to make a final decision. You really need to be very strategic in your approach, because definitely Uranus could make you more impulsive. And because of the clash with the nodes and then with the upcoming lunar eclipses, just dampen that desire down. But there's no doubt about it that Venus, the planet of relating, but also money, links to Uranus. So looking at things in different ways, and perhaps even some kind of partnership, if it was the right chemistry, could be fabulous. And that brings us to relationships, because, yeah, Venus moving into that seventh house and having a fifth house new moon, this could be a really, really intriguing sign. It just depends on your unique circumstances, of course. But if you are uh, so-called footloose and fancy free, you may find that it's a great chance to mix and mingle more. I think us Aquarius people can be very gregarious, but also very quiet. And it's sometimes understanding that need for personal space and when to be more connected to people. But I think you could really have some fabulous social moments, and that alone, whether it's with friends or more intimately, is something to enjoy over the next few weeks. In a relationship which perhaps does feel rather samey and dull and predictable, that could get you thinking. Because you have Uranus as your co-ruler, many Aquarius people do have an outspoken side to their nature, may not necessarily show it on a regular basis, and it could come out when you're particularly frustrated. But if you don't feel that you are able to have pleasure in your life, that may be a big question you need to consider. But again, the T-square to the nodal axis means you might give up some foundational security influences, which do provide something in the overall picture for you at the moment. But if you're in a relationship which is pretty good, the thing is to go and do something that's fun together, and that will reignite the passion between you. All the best, Aquarius. Thank you for joining me, and see you again soon.